A breaking story, new reaction to the FBI announcement that the Bureau is reviewing new emails tied to the Hillary Clinton email scandal. We are now, of course, just 10 days from Election Day, although millions of Americans have already voted. Donald Trump and Republicans are citing the renewed email investigation as proof of Clinton's unsuitability for the presidency, saying another shoe could drop in weeks or months after the election. Clinton's camp is livid at the timing, demanding the FBI essentially put up or shut up. And sources are saying the FBI chief and his boss, the Attorney General, are not on the same page. We have Fox team coverage tonight. Carl Cameron is with the Trump campaign in Phoenix. Just wrapped up a speech there Donald Trump did. Jennifer Griffin is covering the Clinton team in Miami, apparently at a nightclub. But we begin with Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry with the latest on the FBI investigation. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Brett. Eyebrows were already raised, of course, about political interference when Bill Clinton hopped on that plane with Attorney General Loretta Lynch. Tonight, new questions about whether the Obama Justice Department is trying to protect Hillary Clinton.
An FBI source confirmed to Fox that top Justice Department officials tried to stop Director James Comey from informing Congress he was reigniting the investigation of Hillary Clinton, warning Comey it violated two department policies, commenting on an ongoing probe and taking action that could influence an election. The FBI source said while Comey reports to Attorney General Loretta Lynch, he does not play by cautious mother may I rules, and took Lynch at her word.
We take it seriously and we handle it independently, thoroughly, fairly.
A senior law enforcement official added Comey felt compelled to act because the FBI found over 10,000 of top Clinton aide Huma Abedin's emails from a laptop she has shared with estranged husband Anthony Weiner. The LA Times is reporting the new Abedin emails were not to and from Clinton, and top Democrats in Congress jumped on that today to write to Comey and Lynch demanding a more complete accounting of, quote, information from your career investigators and prosecutors in order to debunk these conspiracy theories and correct the public record. The senior law enforcement official insisted the FBI is looking at evidence pertinent to their probe of Clinton. And Republicans note after all the heat Comey took after saying there was evidence of potential violations of law by Clinton, but not actually filing charges, he would not risk a second major embarrassment.
I think this is probably more substantial, and that is why he has put it out now.
Republicans praising Comey now were hammering him this summer for allegedly having a lower bar for average Joes.
They might be on their way to jail, and they probably should. My conclusion was and remains no reasonable prosecutor would bring this case.
Democrats like Donna Brazile, now the interim DNC chair, declared in July Republicans were damaging the rule of law by attacking Comey. While today, Brazile retweeted stories savaging the FBI director's judgment and complaining about, quote, the damage Comey's bad timing could do.
And all of this happening as WikiLeaks, yes, released around 22 of John Podesta's emails, including one in 2015, where liberal activist Neera Tanden told Podesta, quote, sometimes HRC and WJC, as in Bill Clinton, have the worst judgment. That's something we heard from someone else on the left, Bernie Sanders, back in the primaries. Brett?
Okay, Ed, thank you. FBI's shocking announcement Friday of new emails which may pertain to the Hillary Clinton email scandal, and the FBI is now investigating. 2 hours before that news came out, I spoke with Donald Trump and his running mate Mike Pence at Trump Tower in New York. I asked the two men about the use of the phrase rigged system, and we went back and forth on other issues as well. In part 3 of our interview, I asked the GOP ticket about our series Issues That Matter, the top 10 issues important to Americans polled, and which issues they would try to tackle in their first 100 days in office. Mr. Trump says number 1 on his list, repealing and replacing Obamacare.
It's a disaster. It can never work. She wants to try and get it done, Hillary. She wants to try and save it. It can't be saved. It was no good from day one. It'll never be any good. We have to help our vets immediately. We have to secure the border. Drugs are pouring across, forgetting even about the people that are coming in illegally. Drugs are pouring across our border. People in places like North Carolina and New Hampshire, you can buy drugs. You can buy heroin for less than candy. And kids are buying it for less than candy. And what's happening to those communities and those states and our whole country, our children, our kids are being poisoned with drugs. We're going to secure the border. We have to build up. We have to immediately start with our very depleted military. We have jets that are so old they don't even make the parts for them anymore, Brett. There's so many things to do, but I would start by we have to get health care in line. If you look at a great place like Arizona, 116% increase in premiums. 116%. People are going bankrupt trying to pay for health care. And by the way, the health care is no good because deductibles are so high, you can't use it. So it's a tremendous problem. And Gruber, Jonathan Gruber, the architect, the wise guy, who said the American people are stupid, well, he's going to find out they're not stupid.
Governor Pence, I mean, you know that the window is fairly short in a new administration to be able to get things moving. On that list that Mr. Trump just mentioned, in the first 100 days, how do you kind of get all that stuff going?
Well, the first thing we do is we make sure that Donald Trump is the next president of the United States. And then we re-elect Republican majorities in the House and Senate. What you have here is a leader. And he's cast a vision to make America great again by rebuilding our military, getting this economy moving again, not with the tax increases that Hillary Clinton's advocating, but by cutting taxes across the board, repealing Obamacare, having the kind of trade deals that are negotiated in a way that puts the American worker first, and having the kind of appointments to the Supreme Court that will uphold our Constitution in the tradition of the late Justice Antonin Scalia. All that takes is new leadership in the White House, renewed leadership on Capitol Hill. And I promise you, having gotten to know this man over the last 3 months, the energy and the leadership that he's going to provide is going to change the direction of Washington, D.C. and our country quicker than you could possibly imagine.
One of the top issues in our list that is not talked about a lot is education. From a Trump-Pence ticket, what does the education system look like?
Well, we talk about it a lot. Number one, choice. We're going to give choice because that's really needed, and really needed in the inner cities where there essentially is no education. If you want to know the truth, it's horrible. And number one. Number two, we're going to end Common Core. Common Core is a total disaster, and we're going to bring education local. What we have right now is crazy. It's being run out of Washington, D.C. by bureaucrats, many of whom don't care. They just get big fat checks. And you look at where our education is worldwide, Brett. Our education is so bad. It's so bad. Now, we're number one in one thing, cost per pupil. By far, we blow everyone away. As far as the quality of the education, we're 28 and 29. You take a list of 30, we're 28 and 29. You have Sweden, you have Denmark, you have Norway, you have China, you have Japan. You have countries that are spending much less money and doing a much better job. So we would end Common Core, bring education local.
One of the very first things Donald Trump and I talked about was his belief that education is a state and local function. Ending Common Core is born of that principle, but his passion to give parents the ability to choose where their children go to school regardless of their income, their area code, I think is an idea whose time has come. I think the best quality he has is he's someone who's very impatient with failure.
Also on this list is climate change. If you're a millennial who thinks that climate change is a problem and believes the scientists who say it is, why would you vote for a Trump-Pence ticket?
Because we want clean air, we want safety, and we want clean water, crystal clean water. But we can't give hundreds of billions of dollars away to groups that we don't even know where the money is going. It's crazy. And our businesses can't compete with businesses from other countries because of what they're mandated to do. They just can't do it. We have to build our businesses back up. Now, climate change. Some people agree and some people don't. Both groups are very vocal. Some agree, some don't. I consider myself to be somewhat of an environmentalist, believe it or not, but I get tremendous accolades for what I do and the work I do. But we can't afford to be giving billions and billions of dollars away and restricting our businesses when other countries that we're competing against don't have those restrictions.
So when Hillary Clinton says you don't believe in science, and she uses this on the trail.
I don't think most Americans want the kind of divisive and dark change Donald Trump is offering, denying the science of climate change.
And she points back to you saying China is making this up. What do you say?
Well, I'm a total believer in science, but nothing's very conclusive. You had meetings, if you remember, 6-7 years ago where the various people in charge of climate change were emailing each other about what a joke this whole thing is. I mean, look, I'm not knocking anything. I'm just saying we have a country that's in trouble. We have $20 trillion in debt, doubled under Obama's presidency, doubled. In a period of 8 years, it doubled. And we can't afford to be doing the kinds of things that he's getting us into because our businesses cannot compete. We need jobs. We have a trade deficit of $800 billion. We can't do that.
I think what's happening out there as the election continues to approach is people are seeing what a clear choice this is, Brett. This is the clearest choice in a national election in my lifetime. And more Americans every day are choosing strength and are choosing to support Donald Trump as the next president.
Last thing while I have both of you here. If you win, what will you do about Paul Ryan, who obviously you had some problems with throughout this campaign? Would you work with him or work to replace him as Speaker?
I will work with Paul Ryan. I'm very disappointed in leadership because I really believe we'd be winning by a lot. That we have to fight against Republicans is absolutely insane and ridiculous, so I'm very disappointed. But I will work with everybody. I'm not just talking about Paul Ryan. I'll get things through.
He's a friend of yours. What do you think about these Republicans who are running away from your ticket?
You're building that up too much. Let me tell you, we have tremendous Republican support.
We do.
But there are a few people at the top that have not been properly supported.
Some of them are coming back now,
and don't
saying
forget,
they will support.
They should be better than they are.
And Brett, this is a movement of the American people. He's won over independents all across this country who are tired of gridlock in Washington. He's won over many Democrats who are tired of liberal policies in our nation's capital and trade deals that are driving jobs out of our country. But make no mistake about it, the overwhelming majority of Republicans are already there. But our message to the rest is if you believe we need to rebuild our military, if you believe we can revive this economy through tax cuts and repealing Obamacare, and if you believe that we need to have strict construction as to the Supreme Court of the United States, our message is it's time for Republicans to come home and elect Donald Trump as the next president of the United States.
So that's the close change.
Let me just say, look at Utah. I love the people of Utah. I have great relationships in Utah. Now, if for some reason we lose Utah, that could have a very devastating impact on the overall. Now, what happens? Forgetting about everything else, our country will never be the same because we will not get to pick Supreme Court justices in the mold of Justice Scalia. And we have 20 unbelievable people picked, vetted by Federalist Society and Heritage. These will be great justices of the Supreme Court. Now, and I will pick only from that list. So, you know, because they were a little concerned because I was never a politician, so maybe he'll go out and pick a liberal. Okay, that's not happening. Only from that list I'm going to pick. Only. We're not going outside that list. Now, we could have 2, 3, 4. There's even a scenario where we could have 5 picks this next, probably more than any other president. If the incredible people of Utah, they're incredible people. I know the people of Utah. If they go enough for this character that's running all over the state and we lose the state of Utah, that's devastating because that means we're probably going to lose the Supreme Court of the United States for 60 years. By that time, it won't matter because at the end of 60 years, we won't have a country left.
We will cover every stop along the way. Mr. Trump, Governor Pence, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brett.
Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton today reacted to the big FBI news, continuing an investigation looking into these emails found on Anthony Weiner and Huma Abedin, his then wife, their laptop, and tens of thousands or more than 10,000 were told emails. However, news breaking right at this moment, this is from Michael Isikoff just moments ago. We don't have this confirmed independently, but here's how he writes it. As of Saturday night, the FBI had still not gotten approval from the Justice Department for a warrant that would allow agency officials to read any of the newly discovered Abedin emails, and therefore are still in the dark about whether they include any classified material that the Bureau has not already seen. Quote, "We do not have a warrant," a senior law enforcement official said. Discussions are underway between the FBI and the Justice Department as to the best way to move forward. Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. A.B. Stoddard, associate editor of Real Clear Politics. And look at this, Juan Williams, columnist with The Hill in Washington, D.C., co-host of The Five, and Charlie Hurt, political columnist for The Washington Times. All right, Steve. So Isikoff's saying they don't have a warrant. Washington Post says Justice Department said to Comey, don't do it, but there was not a lot of juice there because Loretta Lynch had the meeting with President Clinton on the tarmac. What do you make of all this?
I'm not at all surprised that Loretta Lynch doesn't want Jim Comey doing this after her meeting, but as you discussed with your two panelists earlier, it's part of what led him to go public and be as transparent as he's been. There are two other, I think, interesting considerations. It was reported today that Huma Abedin has told friends and associates that she doesn't know how these emails ended up on Anthony Weiner's computer. That's interesting. It's also apparent that she contradicted herself, or that the existence of these emails on a separate device may have contradicted sworn testimony that she provided, where she told the FBI that she only, or in sworn depositions, that she only used these specified devices to communicate via email, potentially with Secretary Clinton. So there are all sorts of, I think, potential problems for Huma Abedin specifically in this. But on the broader question, the Clinton attacks on Comey are really tough to understand. I mean, on the one hand, she has to defend herself somehow. On the other hand, going after James Comey, the FBI director who clearly went out of his way to avoid prosecuting her before, who works for Barack Obama, attacking him as some kind of Republican stooge just doesn't work. It's just not going to sell.
Juan, I should point out that graphics that AP Isikoff wrote for Yahoo for that piece that's posting now. Now, to Steve's point, Juan, the same person who went to these great lengths to hide these emails and kind of stall with Congress is now calling for transparency and let it all out. Well, they have to know. They can't put all those things out. There's more than 10,000 of them.
No, but I think what the argument is, and one is in terms of the investigative technique and the other is political. So let's do investigative technique first. I think that her argument would be you had to make this judgment on the basis of some alarming information. Otherwise, it's not justified coming so close before an election and politicizing the FBI. So what is the basis for the judgment that you made? The political basis would be, right now, that campaign is in shock. They don't know exactly what happened or where it came from, but they know they got hit. And they're a little bit on the ropes right now. So you can punch back, and the person to punch back at here, interestingly, is not Trump, but Jim Comey. And Comey, of course, even as you heard from your earlier guest, that a lot of people thought he went far in trying to explain the basis and that he had been unreasonably careless earlier before announcing he wasn't making a decision. He was making a decision not to go forward with prosecution. Now he comes to the point where people are saying, well, let's hear from you again. Why are you in hiding, Mr. Comey? So I think that's part of Podesta. John Podesta, the campaign chair, has been the principal punching. Now here comes Clinton today.
You know who's in hiding or haven't seen is Huma Abedin. And Donald Trump noticed that on the trail today.
Is she going to keep Huma? Huma's been a problem. Do we agree? Huma's been a problem. I wonder if Huma's going to stay there. And I hope they haven't given Huma immunity, because it seemed that everybody that walked down the sidewalk got immunity. I hope they haven't given Huma immunity.
All right, so let's talk about the politics, how this translates. Does this move the needle a lot in the final days?
Well, I think, at first glance, definitely. And there are a lot of Hillary Clinton would-be voters that just really are never going to vote for Donald Trump, but they really find her appalling, and maybe this will just ultimately turn them off. I think she's going to lose some voters. I've said all along it is so easy to depress her vote. For a lot of people in this country, Donald Trump scares them, but she nauseates them, and I think this is going to keep people home. That said, I do think, and I've said at this table before, James Comey ran a bad investigation. They didn't impanel a grand jury. They didn't search the home. He indicted her politically and laid out a case for her, and then said, which is not in his purview, and it's in the purview of the Department of Justice, no prosecutor would take this case. He is in political hot water or professional hot water. He's having a midlife crisis about this, and I understand that he can't have this leak and then look like he was covering something up. But the Isikoff news is interesting, that when the letter was written, FBI officials internally are saying he didn't know what was in the emails. He will really melt over this, and in the coming days they're going to fight back. It'll be interesting to see what Obama and Biden say. I don't think anyone cares what Lynch has to say, but this is going to be interesting in terms of, we'll see a week from tonight what this did to her polling, but I don't think it helps her. I just don't know that it'll be an avalanche.
Well, one of the people you mentioned, Joe Biden, talked to CNN.
I think the quicker they release the emails for the public to see them, the better off. And I have confidence in Hillary. I don't know where these emails came from.
Apparently Anthony Weiner.
Well, oh God, Anthony Weiner. I should not comment on Anthony Weiner. I'm not a big fan, and I wasn't before he got in trouble, so I shouldn't comment on Anthony Weiner.
Boy, I'm not sure that they really want the emails out there, because who knows, even if they haven't seen them, there could be a lot of interesting stuff in there.
Oh, sure. Or they could just be about, yoga and, baby showers.
10,000 of them.
Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't matter at this point. They're not going to release them. They can't release them at this point. And the Clintons know that, and that's why they can make that demand. But I do think it's kind of interesting, all this attention on Huma. Huma's not the problem here. The problem here is Anthony Weiner. And Anthony Weiner, the only reason that Anthony Weiner is in Huma's life is because the Clintons introduced the two of them together. And I think about this when I think about what we grapple with, why James Comey has done this, and you think about the terrible position he was in both the first statement he made in the summer, and then more recently. But at the end of the day, it is all the Clintons. The Clintons are the ones that are ultimately responsible for all of this.
Fascinating. Panel, thank you.
Kids are seeing the political ads, hearing about the election from the news and in school. They are asking questions like, who is Hillary Clinton? Who is Donald Trump? Who are you voting for? Why are they saying mean things? And so on. So I sat down with some first graders at the School of the Blessed Sacrament here in New York City to get their take on this election.
What makes a good leader?
By not lying.
Not lying, that's very good.
And help people get jobs. My dad told me that Hillary Clinton lies a lot, so if she wins, she might take over the country. And also a president also has to be truthful, smart, and really, really nice.
Who trusts Donald Trump? Stephen, tell me, why do you trust Donald Trump more?
Because Hillary lies more than Donald Trump.
Who do you guys think won most of the debates? Raise your hand.
Hillary Clinton did better in the debate because she didn't really yell as much as Donald Trump did. My mom said don't listen what they're saying because they might say some bad words.
Did they act like grown-ups?
No.
Sometimes it was like watching two kids, right?
Yeah.
You kicked down a door? The debate made you that mad that you kicked down a door?
And I was like, oopsies, I'll pay for that.
Maybe one of you in this room likes Donald Trump, and another one of you here likes Hillary Clinton. How do you deal with disagreeing with your friends? How do you deal with disagreeing with your friends?
I really don't like to talk about it with them because I don't like to tell who am I voting because it's just your own business.
So, very well taken. How should you talk to your children about politics and answer all of these questions? Joining me now is Dr. Marcy Beagle, child behavior specialist and author of Love Your Classroom Again. I was pretty impressed at how much these 6-year-olds knew about the election. Almost a little too much.
They know a lot of information. I think it's important for parents to think about what they want to share with their children and make sure they're getting specific information that will help them rather than confuse them or be overwhelming and scary for them.
We like to try to filter some of the information because some of this stuff in politics is a little scary. But, I mean, these kids knew a lot of stuff. I mean, are we maybe not doing a good job filtering, or should we let our children know it all?
I think that you want to filter because at 6, what a child will understand of what's happening in the political arena is very different than a child at 10 or 15, and you want to make sure they can synthesize and understand what's happening and have the fallout from that be age appropriate.
Right. But, I mean, when you're trying to decide between a candidate, you're sitting at home, you're watching these debates, and these debates are a little, heated at times.
Yeah.
A lot of the teachers are saying, we don't teach our kids to behave that way in class. How do you expect your kids to understand that we as adults are supposed to act a certain way when they watch two presidential candidates on TV disrespecting one another? It
Right.
just, it kind of counteracts what we're doing as parents.
Absolutely. Talking about what a good leader is and contrasting that to what we're seeing in the presidential candidates, and then talking to your children about what you want them to be doing as leaders, what you're doing to take action for that, how you want to promote that in your community family is all part of the conversation.
Right. Okay, so then best advice, I guess, for those parents in the last couple weeks prior to this election, as things obviously are getting more and more exciting and a little controversial at times.
Be intentional with the conversations and make sure you continue to have the conversations, because these issues aren't going to go away just because the election ends.
Right. And
They're
you also,
ongoing.
you hear the candidates at these rallies during the day. This is afternoon viewing hours while our children are watching. And they're saying some pretty hurtful things about one another. Donald Trump is calling Hillary Clinton a liar. And Hillary Clinton is accusing Donald Trump of alienating a lot of minorities. If you're a minority sitting at home as a child or a little girl and you feel like perhaps they're talking about you, how do you explain to your child that?
I think you can take that as a teachable moment, the way you would if there's any other bullying, any other controversy happening, and say, this is a moment. What could they have said better? How could we have done that differently? Teach your children to be the kids you want them to be, and use the candidates as an example of maybe what not to do.
All right. Dr. Marcy Beagle, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Now, I'm sure that some of you may have heard about a letter that the FBI director sent out yesterday. Well, if you're like me, you probably have a few questions about it. It is pretty strange. It's pretty strange to put something like that out with such little information right before an election. In fact, it's not just strange, it's unprecedented, and it is deeply troubling, because voters deserve to get full and complete facts. And so we've called on Director Comey to explain everything right away, put it all out on the table, right? Now, of course, Donald Trump is already making up lies about this. He is doing his best to confuse, mislead, and discourage the American people. I think it's time for Donald Trump to stop fear-mongering, to stop disgracing himself, to stop attacking our democracy. We can't let him get away with this, can we? Now, like any campaign, there have been ups and downs and ups and downs, but I got to tell you, I feel so motivated, so excited, so ready, because I've always stayed focused on one thing: you and your families.
Let's get some analysis of the FBI decision to not only ramp up this investigation, but to go public with it. Shannon Coffin is a former Justice Department Assistant Deputy Attorney General. That's not Shannon. That's Shannon. Under President George W. Bush, former legal counsel for Vice President Dick Cheney. Ron Hosko is president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund and former Assistant Director of the FBI. Thank you both for being there. We got it right. Shannon, what about this decision, how it's rolled out, and what's behind it?
Well, look, we know we were in a very abnormal situation from the beginning when Jim Comey decided to announce, that he decided there would be no prosecution, yet rolled out all the evidence against Hillary Clinton. Now he's come up with something, and Donald Trump may very well be right that there's something in there that made the FBI director look at this and say, oh no, I can't let that come out after the election. To preserve his own reputation, or what's left of it, he likely decided to roll that out now.
But the what's there, we don't know.
We don't.
But do you buy that this is just kind of making sure that nothing comes out after the election, and that he would actually move forward if there wasn't something, at least somebody looked and said, well, this is somewhat substantial?
Yeah, I think the director is once again put in this position where he's going to try to thread a needle. He's walking on this treacherous, slippery path with snakes on both sides, all ready to inject venom unless they recognize a fellow snake. And Comey started down this path because Loretta Lynch disabled herself in her meeting with Bill Clinton. So she helped put him on this path of extraordinary transparency. Hence his testimony to Congress, hence his statement back in July. And here we are again, and if the FBI recovers this, what's supposed to be thousands of emails, they can't analyze that in a day. And I think it's Comey who's hanging out there who feels like he has the responsibility to Congress to tell them we have to reopen.
Speaking of which, my interview with the Attorney General at the end of February, here's what I asked.
What's most important is to follow the facts, follow the law, and come to an independent conclusion as to what may or may not have happened.
You said that the independent investigators and agents will make the recommendation, but the decider of whether to go forward is you, right?
Well, we'll see what evidence develops and what facts develop, and we'll follow those to their natural conclusion.
Well, here's a senior DOJ official anonymously talking to the Washington Post. Director Comey understood our position. He heard it from justice leadership. It was conveyed to the FBI, and Comey made an independent decision to alert the Hill. He's operating independently of the Justice Department, and he knows it. But to Ron's point, Shannon, because of that meeting on the tarmac in Arizona, they didn't have any option.
No, the Attorney General's credibility on this issue was blown out of the water. So, and of course, President Obama's Justice Department leadership doesn't want this to happen right now. That's not at all surprising. You know, it's a bit ironic, though, Brett, that the Clintons are complaining about this October surprise when Bill Clinton was a beneficiary of one in the 1992 election.
Yeah, that's 1992 when Lawrence Walsh, the independent counsel for Iran-Contra,
4 days before the election, indicts the Secretary of Defense, Caspar Weinberger, leaving the Bushes scrambling with no chance of answering. And what you didn't hear then from the Clintons was that the independent prosecutor was overstepping his bounds and politicizing an election.
Yeah, so it's happened before. The question is, you know, what we know about what we're learning from these WikiLeaks emails. For example, email chain 5, Cheryl Mills, she emails to John Podesta, and at the bottom of the email says to the John, as a reminder, government email is maintained as federal records. In other words, the whole thing's set up. If you're going to send me something that you don't want obtained by the government records, send it on this other email. And it says it at the bottom of the screen. Comey said in the testimony and when he presented that they couldn't find intent. Do you think they're going to find intent in these emails?
Well, certainly they're going to be looking for some sort of a smoking gun in there. They're always looking for a smoking gun because when you have people who are in this close of collaboration with each other, the likelihood of them flipping on that conversation that's just a private, unrecorded conversation is low.
But when you hear the LA Times saying there's no emails to or from Hillary Clinton, first of all, I don't know how they know that, judging by our sources, but what do you think of that?
I think that's way premature to know that. From what I'm hearing and what's been reported out there, we're talking about thousands and thousands of emails. Even if the FBI has what their previous review was automated, fully automated, now they're going to have to suck these new emails into the same system and start to compare this stack with the previous stack and say, okay, these we've already seen, it's covered. Now you have to look at everything you haven't seen and analyzed and sent to the intelligence community to say, do you say it's classified? Do you say it's classified? What do we have here that's new?
Shannon, even if they don't find what we're talking about here, the smoking gun, you have this code, U.S. Code, 18 U.S. Code 2071, concealment, removal, or mutilation generally. Whoever willfully, unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, or destroys, or attempts to do so with the intent to do so, takes or carries away any record, proceeding, map, book, paper, document, or other thing filed or deposited with any clerk or officer of any court in the United States, continues on, shall forfeit his office, be disqualified from holding any office under the United States. This deals directly in U.S. code, does it not?
It's a felony charge.
Just to have the private server.
That's right. The server itself was the crime. It's the server, stupid. It's kind of what I've been saying from the beginning on this. Forget about the classified information. It's Hillary Clinton setting up a server for the purpose of circumventing all of the federal records laws and the email, Cheryl Mills' email that says reminder, your official emails are preserved, which the negative implication is, so send it on the side. Those emails should have been preserved from the beginning as well. And circumventing that entire system and concealing these emails and destroying 30,000 of these emails is itself a crime.
But quickly, do you think that Comey is here because he's gotten so much internal pressure inside the FBI about the original decision or how it was handled?
I think there is internal pressure. I think there is internal dissent. I don't think it is on a wide scale. I do think, and I've been told, that the team that investigated this, that they had a common approach and they agreed with the ultimate result, which was not to recommend prosecution. But I think there are louder and louder voices of dissent, including from retired agents groups that I participate in, because of how he went out in front of this. That is usually the province of the Department of Justice to say, we recommend or we're going to. But again, we go back to Loretta Lynch shooting her foot off in a meeting with Bill Clinton and making this look more political than it should have. Hence, Comey into the breach.
And Donald Trump using it at every speech. Ron, Shannon, thank you very much.
Thank you.